Hello, everyone, and welcome to Movao Live, where we talk about the latest and hottest community topics. Today, we're going to be talking all about travel with a disability, and we're going to be shining a spotlight on Ottobock's Invisible Class campaign, a campaign that is creating vital awareness around the world for all the invisible travel barriers that people with disabilities face while traveling in the hope to make some of these invisible barriers visible. I've got some fantastic guests joining me today, but before we meet them, let's have a little recap on the campaign video.
Welcome to the Invisible Class. This class you don't book yourself. The world does it for you. Adventure awaits. Whether you want it or not. Every detail is designed to your needs with quick and easy travel. Get ready for the highest standards. Security gives you extra attention. Meanwhile, you will be lost in the luxury of the experience.
Thousands of wheelchairs go missing during transit.
Enjoy the perfect break. Your taxi driver will greet you on arrival. And part of every booking is dream accommodation. Made for everyone but you.
Thank you for traveling with the Invisible Class.
Wow, wow, wow. What an incredible campaign, and what a perfect opportunity to invite my first guest into the conversation. Zainab, please do introduce yourself and say hi. And how did it feel to be involved in such an important campaign, raising such fantastic awareness for our travel barriers?
Hi, Rebecca. I'm super happy to join you on this talk today. And honestly, this topic is very close to my heart because I personally faced so many things and still facing a lot of things when I'm traveling. So the stress starts even before leaving my home, and I think a lot of people share with me this feeling. So to be part of this campaign and to have Ottobock thinking about this campaign and to work on it, honestly, was something that I was very happy and proud of. And to see it coming to life and to reach millions of people online in hopes to make a change and to bring that kind of awareness and actual action. This makes me so happy. And I look forward to seeing changes. It's not just for me a video that hits millions of views, but I really look forward to seeing actual changes on the ground and to not feel stressed anymore when I'm just packing my luggage and taking the taxi, knowing that, oh, okay, I'm not gonna start feeling the joy of flying out until probably I'm close to boarding. And then another stage of challenges, but like just to cross security and to bring that kind of awareness to each and every person working in the security, you know, department. Like, yeah, it should be this way, maybe, or like I should be asked differently, or I should be approached differently, because it's not the same level everywhere. And it's heartbreaking sometimes. And since years, I chose not to travel out with my friends. And if we're flying out at the same time, I always ask them that please pass the security and then I'll meet you afterwards.
Mm.
Just in case it takes longer, because they will be feeling stressed, they will be getting emotional for me, and it just creates some kind of chaos on the ground and could lead to a misunderstanding. So yeah, this is a really big topic that has no certain geographical place. It happens everywhere, and there are different challenges, barriers for all kind of disabilities and parents and families. So it's not only the person.
Yeah, absolutely. And what are some of the most common invisible barriers that you've faced? while going through airport security or traveling abroad? Because you love to travel, don't you? You
Yeah.
just got back from Mauritius. How was
Yes.
that?
Oh, wow. It's heaven on earth. You guys should visit soon. Honestly, it's such a beautiful country. Exceeded my expectations,
Mm.
even in terms of development, accessibility. So it was better than I had imagined. Um, so what are the main barriers? I would say for me personally, as someone who uses a prosthetic leg, security. Um, and That's not an easy topic, to be honest with you. And it just depends on the person, country, regulations, changes in regulations that out of a sudden changes. And then if I'm traveling to a destination and then I get surprised with a lot of stairs and no lifts, and unfortunately I don't travel light, so that becomes a workout, especially if there is no one around. And I tend to work out and take care of my fitness just to be completely independent. But even with that, sometimes you really need help because you can find tens and hundreds of steps just to reach your apartment.
Yeah, I know.
I mean, these are the basics, the basics challenges. And not to
Mm,
go further with entertainment, like you could be stopped, not allowed to play something because somebody stated the rule that, oh, you're not entitled to be there. Recently, I was on a helicopter ride and I was entitled to be in the first seat, but just because of a law that somebody with disability can't sit next to the exit, and they chose someone who was like, not, I don't mean to be like like mean to other people, but she didn't even speak any other languages and she had the huge difficulty to understand anything. And I'm like, who's safer?
mm,
Somebody who could not understand we're going through an emergency, or someone who's fit and can take action, but just of a general law that is not even customized based on the situation. So yeah, I can keep on going and going.
yeah. I tell
But
you
yeah.
what, that just brought me of a memory actually, because on aircrafts, on airlines, we as, amputees, sometimes we need that little bit of extra leg room,
Mm-mm.
don't we?
But
Our
we're
legs
not
sometimes,
entitled for.
yeah, and it would
Yeah.
be nice to be able to sit by the where the emergency doors are, but because we are amputees, we're not allowed to
Yeah.
sit there, and it just
Yeah, and
doesn't make
sometimes
sense.
the person who's sitting literally like is not the right person at all, like in terms of health, fitness level, even like, like you can see that person might not be the right person, but they might choose that person over you.
Mm,
So many things doesn't make sense.
yeah.
And that's only from my side, like as someone who uses a prosthetic leg, I definitely see that it's way harder for people with wheelchair or like with other kind of disability. A mixed kind of disability is even way harder.
Yeah. On that
Mm.
note, shall we invite Marcus into the conversation?
Sure.
Marcus is a wheelchair user. Marcus, hey, how are you doing? So, how does the Invisible Class campaign resonate with you and your own experiences traveling as a wheelchair user?
Yeah, hello to everybody. Yeah, I'm happy to be here. Yeah, like you said, I'm sitting like since since I'm 5 years old in a wheelchair and facing since this time a lot of challenges, and especially traveling is a special one. And I see myself very much into this movie too. Like Zainab said, leaving the house, taking an Uber, especially for me, I'm not just only often leaving with my daily chair. For example, when I travel, I'm also an athlete, and I take my sports chair with me. So I have two pieces and my luggage. And if I would call a Uber by phone and say, "Hey," everybody would say, "We can't do that," and nobody would come. So I need lie at first, and I need to learn and check. Okay, which taxi, for example, is working for me, and I see the car. It's a Toyota. It's a combi. I know it will fit. And when people start talking, hey, it's not enough space. I'm just be super friendly and keep doing and pushing my stuff and say, hey, it works. It's like you have to be somewhere super aggressive friendly and push yourself with what you know what works to get, for example, to the airport. Just one point. Yeah.
Yeah, I remember as well, Marcus, when we were in Berlin working together, we were highlighting some of the invisible barriers within the city, and you told me this story, which really stuck with me really, and it just made me like really realize some of the invisible barriers that you face. It was one where you needed to get home, and that route home that you normally take it had been closed, and you had to divert your way back, and it added hours, like half a day onto your journey. And that really stuck with me. Does that stuff like that happen quite a lot for you?
Yeah, it's like I think this world is built by people who are able and designed for it. And the more you're getting off this, the harder it gets. So I think on the one term it's good, like Zana said, I also try be as fit as possible as I can be to challenge the most things what I can do by my own. But on the other hand, it's a thing of society to face these challenges and to create transportations which are also able for everybody. And it's not always a big deal to do it, for example. And the point you've said before was I left home after work. It was the hottest day in Berlin for many years, and because of the heat, every lift got broken. And also because of the heat, subway was a little bit also in traffic, and I couldn't call an Uber because nobody took me because it was too busy. And after I go to the first lift and recognize it's broken, okay, I thought I can push like this 1 kilometer to the another one. And surprise, surprise, the other one was also broken because of the heat. And in the end, I pushed 12 kilometers at home after 5 lifts. It's no joke, 5 lifts broken. And I thought then, okay, I'm in the move now. I just keep moving forward. So, but on the other hand, it would be easy to just get another second lift at some train station to have a chance, if one is broken, to take another one. But it's, for example, one of those things, there's just always one. And if it's broken for weeks, for a long time, and there's no other solution.
How do you keep so resilient to overcome all these barriers? I guess it's just a common occurrence. You just make them part of your daily life and have your own way of like overcoming them.
Yeah, it's like we do now, like we try now also to face the world and um, tell them the points which are maybe improvable. I know it's also when you have a disability, not all will always be able to improve. But when we have the chance to do it, like let's talk about it and find solution together and speak about it, because I think in the end it's not always a topic for person with disability. It's also a topic for when you get older, for example, and you not have the strength anymore to make so many steps. So make the world a little bit better for everybody. And that's, I think, how I think. Yeah.
Mm. And people, they're not really very aware of the invisible barriers either until it affects them. And, as you said, things that people can deal with now, traveling around, as they get older, they may find it harder, or they may get a disability because of illness or something. And then they have to face these invisible barriers. And that's why this campaign is so important, because obviously it's the invisible barriers that we face every single day, but hopefully making them more visible to everyone out there, and with more awareness, hopefully that brings some change, and all for the good for everyone. So so I wanted to bring another voice into the call right now, and I wanted to share a clip from Sophie Morgan, from her TED Talk. Sophie Morgan is a TV presenter here in the UK, and she's also the founder for Rights on Flights. I would love to get your thoughts and opinions of everybody. Also, to anyone watching at home, please do send some questions to the chat group, and we will try and answer those.
Happening. Now, one of the things that I'm most excited about personally is the campaign is asking for a space to be created on board an aeroplane for us to be able to travel in our chairs, much like we can on a bus or in a taxi or on a train. And this is what that could look like. You see, this seat that I was sitting in earlier, this is no standard seat. This is an Air for All system. It looks pretty simple in principle, but it has taken a long time for this to be created. It has been designed by Delta Flight Products and a consortium of others for wheelchair users to be able to roll on a plane in our manual or in our power chairs and be strapped down and travel in our chairs should we choose to. And the exciting thing about this is it is on track to be approved by the US regulator as soon as the end of this year. However, and here's the catch, as yet, not one single airline has committed to adopting this solution. And without laws to mandate it, what are we going to do? We're going to have to depend on the airlines to do the right thing. Now the question is, will they?
Okay, so for me, I find that quite exciting that there's an airline seat available, but at the same time, it's a little bit frustrating because there's no laws to mandate it. There's a perfectly amazing solution here, but it's not being, used at the moment. I'm going to invite Kristen into the call as well because she is another wheelchair user. And yeah, let's welcome Kristen. Hi, Kristen.
Hi,
I
Rebecca.
remember that you told me that you were actually at this TED Talk as well. You
I
went to
was actually. So, funnily enough, and apologies if you can hear a bit of background noise today, I'm actually just down the road from Hackney Empire, which is where this talk took place. And it was earlier this year. And at this point, I traveled a little bit as a wheelchair user and had my own experiences of challenges with mobility assistance and airlines. And the minute I already followed Sophie on Instagram, and the minute I saw her advertise that she was doing this talk, I was like, I need to be there. So I went along and watched, and as you could sense from the room, I mean, people were just amazed at her resilience in pushing through so many obstacles to try and make something like this happen. I mean, she's got so many connections with so many airlines, and what I've gathered is how frustrating it's been that even when you offer a solution, it's not taken up. And unfortunately, sometimes it's that traveling for people with disabilities isn't so good for business, is what she said to me, which is just, I mean, unbelievable. So yeah, I'm so glad that I got to see her and I got to meet her and hear more about all the work she's doing, which is incredible. So hopefully she keeps up the momentum.
Yeah, and how, for example, this accessible seat for airlines would be absolutely life-changing, wouldn't it? How would it change your life as a wheelchair user flying?
What would be, I mean, amazing. I mean, one of the biggest anxieties for anyone as a wheelchair user is the fact that when you arrive to the gate of an aircraft, you actually have your wheelchair taken away from you and it's then stored underneath the plane. And what you're given is something called an aisle chair. And aisle chairs are made, very, very narrow. So they're much more narrow than a standard day wheelchair. And that's just so that they can take you down the aisle. But obviously, when you have your wheelchair taken away from you, that's like having your independence stripped away from you. And just the feeling of having two other people actually manhandle you to get onto an aircraft, to get you to your seat. And then on landing, that fear of, gosh, what if my chair isn't there? Or what if they don't bring it back to the aircraft door so I can get off the plane? I mean, that's an issue that I've had a few times when that hasn't happened. So to have a wheelchair seat where you can keep your wheelchair with you, I mean, that would just give so much more reassurance and confidence for people being able to travel who otherwise feel like it's just too much stress to be able to do it.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I can't relate. Zainab, I think maybe you could probably share this experience. I can't relate to having a wheelchair taken from me, but a couple of times when I've gone through security checks at the airport, I've had to have my prosthesis removed. And it's the most vulnerable feeling, having your mobility aids taken away from you and just being left alone and not, you just feel really disabled and vulnerable. It's a really scary feeling. So I can really understand how that feels. Yeah. Zainab, did you want to share
Yes,
any more about that?
it's happened with me a lot. and it keeps on happening.
Oh, that's
Um,
awful.
it never gets easier, honestly. Like I thought, like the first time happened to me, I cried for hours. Like I was in complete shock. Like this is really happening. Especially like where it happened, it was like a place where I was in power as an advocate. So I was in complete disbelief that this was happening. It helped to improve a little bit that they started to have bags to keep the prosthesis in, but that never made it easy for me as a user just to be requested to take it off.
Right.
So honestly speaking, whenever I'm traveling, I'm always trying to take a deep breath and be prepared that this scenario could happen. And I never feel relaxed until I pass security wherever I'm traveling, regardless whether it's the destination, which airport I am. And it completely makes you feel like, yes, it's a reminder you aren't disabled, you know?
Yeah.
This approach I'm completely against, whether you are using a prosthesis, a wheelchair. Like for me, it's not about my only disability, but like we all as in one. And it's also like we need to always say no. For me, I always say no. At the beginning, it's like you need to understand that I'm not against security check, but I'm against this approach. So I have to keep on saying no until like that's it. I need to take it off and then I surrender. But mentally, it's never easy. I always feel brokenhearted. And that's why I also mentioned to you that I always ask my friends or family just to pass and just to go and further, and I meet them at the duty free because I need to sit with myself with my feelings if this happened and just like later on I can just like be okay.
Yeah.
So I feel so brokenhearted for every wheelchair user. I hate it when I see it. And I completely feel them from far away when I see like they are forced to have the support while they can be completely independent and need no one, but it's just because of the system. And I completely agree with the fact that because it's not something of a good source of business, maybe airlines are not conducting that idea or having that idea yet. So that's where the role of governments come and like enforcement that like at least each airline should have, let's say, 5 to 10 seats allocated for people with disability where they can convert the seat in a different way to fit them and make it suitable for them. It's not like having the full airplane, but at least a few seats that is possible to adapt and just to make somebody feel like their dignity and just like feel valued.
Absolutely. Completely agree with you there. It's not a fun experience. And because there's no guidelines or policies in place, you never really know when it's going to happen either. Like some airports, it's an easy transition and you get through seamlessly. And then others, it's really stressful. You get taken to a room, you get asked to get undressed in front of someone, you have to remove your prosthesis, and it's really demeaning, and it would just be great if there was one policy set in place for all airports around the world which would sort of treat us more with respect. Marcus, how about you? How have some of your experiences been flying as a wheelchair user?
I fully agree here with you and with Zainab, like what you told. It's also a very strong scene in the campaign. Like it's exactly this check. And I also fully agree that for sure we also need to be checked, like also the wheelchair, like you can hide may something. It's just the way how it's done. And in different countries, I also was treated very, very different. And I think it's just a little bit of, hey, I will check you now. And don't be afraid. Maybe you can sit here and I check your wheelchair. Just explain what you do. Explain to the person where you take the legs, for example, or also you take my wheelchair from me. Explain me what you do. And for sure I will understand. But if the person just grab you, just pull you away, nobody would do with a walking person. So that's just a different often. And we get into defense mode because we don't know what is happening next.
Mm.
And it's just often these small steps, also here outside, educate a little bit more, and then we do a big change already.
Yeah. And it seems so crazy to me as well, because one thought I have is that we're always constantly being told never to leave our important possessions around an airport. And then at the same time, they're trying to take the most important things away from us. It doesn't make any sense whatsoever at all. So, yeah. But Kristen, did you have anything else that you wanted to share to that?
I'd also like to just add a bit about just the handling of mobility aids as well. I mean, so those of us, so we've talked about like the anxiety of having your aids taken away from you, but also there's a huge issue, and this is on an international scale, about how mobility aids are handled and cared for by airline staff. I mean, I've got at least a few examples of where my wheelchair's been damaged on the way when I land and I go to collect it, and it's not in the state that I left it in. And one of those occasions, so I play wheelchair sport, and I was in Miami in March of this year. And when I arrived, one of the wheels had been bent so much that I actually couldn't use it for the sport that was the purpose of me being there. And I had to get sort of friends of mine to try and work out a way to bend it back into place just so I could participate. And I mean, that should not be something that is happening in this day and age, but it is. And unfortunately, through some of the documentaries that Sophie has talked about, this is not a small issue. This is a huge issue of mobility aids being damaged and not being brought to the aircraft when they're requested. And a challenge I regularly find is, even if you are so organized and, we now, when the plane's about to land, we will speak to one of the cabin crew and just say, can you make sure that the chair's brought to the aircraft? And often the response is, oh, yes, they know what they're doing, or don't worry, they'll do it. And I now actually ask them, can you actually call to make sure it happens? Because on so many occasions, you get to the airline and then the chair isn't there. And then when mobility assistants do come, they say, oh, we just don't have a process that your chair gets brought to the aircraft. We take it to the luggage carousel. And sometimes these airports are huge. I mean, Madrid airport especially is such a huge airport. It was 2 hours between the plane landing and me actually being reunited with what is my legs, my independence, and having to be pushed by people I don't know, being completely, have all my independence taken away, putting trust into people I don't know who can't always speak your language is, I mean, quite kind of undignifying. And I think the approach needs to be on like an international scale. This isn't just individual airlines. This is a worldwide problem that needs to be resolved.
Well, it definitely is a worldwide problem, isn't it? That we need some kind of like guide which every single airport and airline follows when it comes to treating people, people with disabilities and their medical equipment and everything all fairly everywhere. So yeah, that would be really, really great to have something like that. Wanted to also introduce some of our Movao members into the conversation. So I started a thread to our Movao community, and a lot of them came up with some fantastic ideas. And I wanted to introduce Chris to the conversation. Chris, hello, hi. Chris is a new amputee with a fresh new perspective. And yeah, please do introduce a little bit about yourself, Chris, and your story, and some of what your new life as an amputee is like, getting around.
Rebecca said, I was amputated in May this year, so really fresh. Since 10 weeks, I've got my prosthetics, so I'm learning to walk. I'm walking without crutches now, so that's good. For me, it was an improvement. I had tumors, giant cell tumors in my right knee for 27 years, multiple operations, chemotherapists, everything. So this is a big improvement for me. I live without pain, and I can walk again. I can walk for several kilometers. I can cycle again, which I haven't done in years, and I can do some sports again, which is only increasing. And I'm moving around, first of all in the city I live, and a little bit abroad. And next month we've booked a flight to Malaga, to Spain, so that's my first flight as an amputee. So really interesting to hear all your stories. Unfortunately, they're not always so good. So, that's a bit of a dampener. But I had we flew to Malaga in April this year, just before my amputation. I was walking on crutches, and I had some good experiences through security because I couldn't remove anything, just a knee brace and my crutches. But people were very kind. I had to go to a separate security gate with separate people, and they were very polite. It actually saved me a lot of time. So it can also be sometimes a little bit good. So hopefully with the prosthetics, it's not going to be more difficult than that. But yeah, my first experience here in Rotterdam with public transport, just as an example, was a bus ride into town, which was quite eventful. I was walking with crutches still, and the bus driver was really in a hurry. The bus driver just hit the gas, and I was stumbling throughout the bus, grabbing hold of everything I could. So that was quite eventful, but also a lesson. Just when I'm in the bus, grab everything I can if I'm not that stable yet. But that was quite a fun experience afterwards. So I have a good story, but not so fun at the moment at that moment. But I'm learning that on a positive note that most people are very helpful, and that was really a surprise to me. So besides the independence, if you want to accept help, I can always get it from everybody. Whether I'm walking through town, whether I'm taking a bus, whether I'm taking the train, everybody moves aside for me or helping me on escalators or whatever. So that's a positive thing. The other thing I learned is that I need to really plan my destination, check it out beforehand, if it's accessible enough for me. Not too much stairs. I can walk stairs, but it takes time. So is there an escalator or an elevator or whatever? Whether it's by bus, by bike, by train, whatever. How are the stations accessible? Some mentioned it before in this conversation. For example, 2 weeks ago I was in Paris, and Paris is a great city to be in, but the public transport is not very accessible for amputees or even people in wheelchairs. It must be much worse. So some stations are deep underground with no escalators, no elevators or whatever. So after a couple of hours checking out the internet, which stations can I take, which route can I take, I couldn't bother anymore. I just took taxis. And the thing was, I don't have a wheelchair, so I can easily take taxis. And I kept a lot of energy left over to do nice things in Paris. So I could walk more, I could see things more, and not spend all my energy on the public transport, which is not accessible enough for us, unfortunately, there. So there's always a way, but yeah.
Has anyone else got any stories about Paris that they would like to share? Zainab?
See, I definitely understand and respect that when a city is an old city, like in terms of history, how it is established. So sometimes it's really difficult to change all of that establishment to make sure that it is accessible for everyone. So same thing, I think, with London, like certain tubes, they only have accessible stops, so you have to search and try to make your way around it. And I don't know, for me, I've learned along the way that I need to adapt. So sometimes if a place is not very accessible, I just need to find my way around it and not make that ruin my journey. Of course, sometimes you get mad or frustrated, but you just try to figure your way around it, because you come to a realization that it's just the reality is that not everywhere is made for you, whether you like it or not, whether it's modern or old, whether it's very developed or not. It's just like not every place is made for you. So it's take it or leave it. And it's your choice to adapt or just enjoy it and make the best out of it. So Paris was a bit challenging, but you just find your way around it. It's just like an old city where it's not, unfortunately, very accessible everywhere. You try to raise awareness or talk about it, but it's just the way it is,
Yeah, absolutely. And this is leading to another question to Kristen, actually, because you're currently in London. So how has your travel today been? Have you had any travel barriers or anything, or has it gone smoothly?
So for me, I mean, I generally always make an assessment of what's the best way to travel depending on where I'm going. And London is one of those cities where if you can take the train, it's probably the easiest. But actually, with challenges in the past I've had with trains kind of not actually doing the full length of the journey. They stop because there's signaling problems, and then you have to change trains, and maybe the next station isn't actually accessible. And no one, I think, with the support staff that we have on our network rail services, often they're not very well equipped with the knowledge for how to redirect people if there are transport issues. And that's something I've had in the past. So sometimes I find that driving is probably the easiest way. I mean, we are fortunate in the UK that going into London, if you have a blue badge, so a card for your disability, you don't have to pay the charges, like the congestion charge of traveling into London. So today I made the decision on the basis of just reliably knowing at least I'd get here of driving. But then there's the challenge of traffic and also where you're going to park. And for me, that's always something I will do in advance is I'll look up where can I find the blue badge bays. I'll go on Street View. I'll look at the road that I have to get to and kind of navigate my way around to try and work out where is good parking for me, because disabled bays are really hard to find here. So today I left 2 hours. Actually, it ended up taking me a little bit longer because of the traffic, and found a street not far from where I was going in Hackney where I could park at the side of the road. I think it was one of those it wasn't a blue badge bay, but if you had a blue badge, you at least didn't have to pay for parking. So that's where I ended up going. But then you've got the challenge of, right, so my way of getting my chair out of the car is I will sit it on the passenger seat next to me. I'll open my door onto the pavement and then pass it across outside the car. And where I was, the only space was next to a lamppost. So I had to figure out, right, how can I get the door open just enough to be able to pass this out and then somehow rebuild the chair next to me with this sort of lamppost in the way. And so it wasn't the easiest, but I managed it. And, for me, it's just once I've actually got somewhere and able to get out the car, that's when my day starts. My anxiety is always going to be there up until that point. Because you just don't know that you might leave enough time to drive somewhere, but actually maybe you'll spend up to an hour just looking for a parking space. So that's also the risk that comes with making that decision to drive rather than take public transport. So yeah, unfortunately, it's always something that we have to sort of navigate with disability, especially in a city that isn't very, very accessible. But I feel lucky now that because I've been in a wheelchair for a few years now, since 2022, at least I've got the physical strength that I can, go up a little bit of a steeper slope and navigate the city a bit more easily than maybe when I first started.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you, Kristen. And Marcus, did you have anything you wanted to add to that?
Yeah, I love, thank you for sharing the story, Kristen. Like, for example, it's a good example because there's a solution already. We have a parking space for wheelchair people. But people block us or park very tight because they don't know that we don't need a space to park because we are not able to park good. It's because we have to put out the wheelchair next to our car. We need more space. So for all you outside, please don't park too tight next to us when it's a wheelchair parking space, because that's already a spot. It's accessible. It's perfect. It's a good idea. Just don't park too tight to us so we can get out and inside our car.
Oh, excellent. Yeah. So everybody out there, if you're watching, do not park too close to anybody who has a disabled badge. I'm going to invite Richard into the conversation now. Richard is calling in from South Africa, and he's another Movao community member. Hello, Richard. How are you? Please do introduce yourself and a bit about your story.
Hi, Rebecca. Hi, everyone. Thanks very much for inviting me on this amazing show and the opportunity to speak. So I'm a relatively new above-the-knee amputee. 3.5 years ago, lost my leg. For me, this has been a lifestyle change in terms of everything is a plan. People don't understand. They think you wake up, clip your leg on, and off you go, you walk. It isn't that. I mean, so, it's a lot of things. When I started moving and going to stay in hotels, do I take a walker? Do I take my crutches? Am I going to be able to charge my leg? Do they have a bathroom that has the facility? So, there's a lot of things that, as people have said, that others differently abled people aren't aware of. And I think the biggest problem is that creating awareness and letting people understand exactly what it is. I know of certain places, certainly in the workplace, where they have 2 or 3 times a year, they give people wheelchairs. You go to certain prosthetists will give you a leg you can strap onto people and let them spend a day seeing what challenges we face in the workplace, just to understand what needs to be done. So, as I said a little bit earlier, the biggest problem and the biggest issue is creating awareness, because people don't know, and ignorance is what rules. I've been fortunate. In South Africa, we don't have a public transport system. We have an informal taxi service. You don't get in those vehicles. I mainly use Ubers, which I haven't had any issues with. But everything that I do is planned. Where am I going to go? How many stairs? How am I going to get back and forth? I have a lot of friends who have learned through my journey of how to deal with it, and they support me. They also have understood that a disability is not necessarily inability. So, we might look different, we do things differently, but we're still normal.
Yeah.
And, people need to understand that. The biggest problem we face in South Africa is going into public with a prosthetic in short pants. When people see you with that prosthetic, I'll give you an example. My sea leg costs in the region of almost R1 million. The R1 million is, in terms of British pounds, £50,000. The crime rate here is extremely high, and they'll take your leg from you and sell it for
What,
200
someone will
rand.
steal your leg from you?
Yes, they will, and you can't insure it. So they'll steal it and they'll sell it for 1,000 rand, £50, because they don't understand the value and they don't realize they're taking things away from you. So you have to learn, okay, where am I going to get out? Is there a restaurant I can sit in to wait for the Uber to arrive, so that I'm not opening myself to being in that vulnerable situation? Air travel, I've traveled once through to Cape Town. Fortunate enough to travel with a guy who's a double amputee, below and above the knee, and he's been flying for 35 years, so he's got the ins and outs. But going to an airport, I realized I need a wheelchair again because of the distances that you need to travel. It's these small little things that
Yeah. It's
people don't
creating
understand.
awareness for
Yeah.
people to make change. But, oh,
But for the
thank you.
rest, I was told last week that I make being an amputee sound like fun, because I'm enjoying it. Things are, opportunities that have been created since losing my leg way exceed the issues and problems that could be associated with it. It's what
Oh,
you
that's
make of it in your mind.
exactly. Yeah, absolutely. Thank you so much, Richard. It's lovely to talk to you. I'm just going to invite our last guest now into the conversation, Petter. Petter, he shared some fantastic tips within our community. Please do share these and let us know some top tips for traveling.
Hello, I'm an above knee amputee since 2016 and I've been traveling quite a bit. So I always book assistance at the airport that gets me through security fast and easy. But what bothers me is all the different rules from airport to airport regarding removing shoes, etc. Some demands it, some say, doesn't matter. So it's really hard to know which rule is in which airport in which country. But I was actually flying to Denmark with work a month ago and had a short time between my flights in Oslo, and we landed on the tarmac and all the others got on the bus to the terminal and the assistant didn't arrive. So I was left in the plane.
Oh my goodness.
Luckily, it was the same plane that we were going to Denmark with. So the captain and the purser decided to let me stay on the plane, and the boarding started and then the assistant arrived. But then it was too late, so they sent him away again. But I also always bring my wheelchair to save energy, since there's often long distances in airports, and I always have a seat to relax in if there are no free seats at the gate. And I also bought a wheelchair attachable bag with wheels, so I can hang it behind my back from a UK company. And if I book a hotel, I always ask for a larger room. Doesn't always have to be a handicap room, but accessible, so I at least can use my wheelchair to the bathroom during the night when I'm not wearing my prosthetic leg.
Mm-hmm.
And I also try to remember to bring my charger for my leg and a power bank fully charged.
Yeah, absolutely. Power bank is a must-have
Yeah.
when traveling. Absolutely.
But normally everything goes fine, but it's those small things. Last time I was in a hotel was the bathroom was so tiny you couldn't fit with a wheelchair through the door. So then I had to hop into the bathroom.
Yeah, absolutely. So are you going anywhere on your if you got another holiday booked coming up at all that you'd like to share?
Nothing planned yet, but
Yeah.
I'm traveling a bit with Momentum, the Norwegian User Association, since I'm in the board.
Oh, okay. Excellent.
So we have a big event planned for end of June next year in outside Oslo.
Okay,
We
what's
have
the
the 30th Jubilee of Momentum next year.
nice. And what's all that about?
That's a big gathering with Ottobock, Filler, all the big companies
Oh,
come and have a stand, and we have a party and
nice. Sounds lots of
socialize.
fun. Did I meet you one day at one of those events?
I've
Can't
met you
remember.
in Leipzig.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah, I do remember that now. I just had a memory come back just then. Yeah, Leipzig's really good fun, isn't it? Really good.
Yeah, I'm going next year.
Oh, nice. Brilliant. I don't know if I'm going yet, but if I do, hopefully I will see you there. Oh, thank you so much, Petter. And does anyone else have any top tips that they want to share while traveling, whether as an amputee or a wheelchair user? Marcus,
I
over
can,
to you.
yeah, I can share one good. Like there are these good air tags. You could add them to everything you can, or you have to hand over. You need to leave at the airport. For example, for the wheelchair, for the while you travel, you don't have it, and maybe it's not coming with you. But when you at least when you've landed, you see in the air tag in your phone, okay, the chair is still in London and not in Germany. So at least you know where it is, and then you can tell the personnel or security, like, hey, I see the chair is not here in this country. Please check, because often they don't know at least where it is. So that's a good tip for everybody who travels with wheelchair, for example.
I
Yeah.
Yeah, that is an excellent tip. I just don't understand how they can not know where your wheelchair is. If they check someone into the fight, surely
Yeah.
they would make sure that the wheelchair, their mobility aid, would actually be checked in with them. It's crazy. I can't believe that that happens
It
so often.
happens more regularly than you would expect, and it's really like, imagine, like also for everybody outside, imagine these are your legs and you can't move anymore. You can't leave the airport. You can't go to toilet, nothing. And they just don't know where your legs are. And this happens pretty sadly regularly. And normally they also can't give you the chair from the airport, because when you leave the airport, it's airport material. So it's pretty tricky thing, and it happens way too often. It's nothing like one in the 10 years. It's really regular, and it's a very sad thing.
They lose your wheelchair, your very expensive wheelchair, but
Yeah,
they don't let you borrow their wheelchair,
yeah.
their airport wheelchair. That's
I mean,
crazy.
it happens once. They lost on one flight my regularly and my sports wheelchair. So I lost, sadly, the sports event I signed for. I took holiday. It cost me about 3,000 euro, everything together, just to join there. But also my daily chair was missing for 3 days. And I was just after long talk, they gave me chair at least that I could stay in a hotel. but I couldn't move for 3 days because the chair is very big. And it's a horrible thing when your legs get lost, and it should not be a standard that it happens. Yeah.
That's terrible. Petar, you're asking a question?
Yeah, it happened one time with me. The wheelchair was left in Oslo and I came home to Stavanger and it was not there. But luckily I was wearing my prosthetic leg so I could walk home. But they actually asked me if I wanted to borrow a chair from the airport.
That's good. Oh, that's good at least. Yeah. And over, Kristen has a question.
I was just going to share as well, because we're talking about tips and things. So whenever I check in my wheelchairs, so typically I would always call in advance to the airline, even if they have an online form where you can add the dimensions of your wheelchair. I would always call them at least kind of like 1 to 2 days in advance, just to make sure they have all the information. That I also will ask them to actually reserve a space for me then, rather than when I arrive, just to make sure that there's a seat in a convenient place and my companion can also sit with me. But also when I go to the check-in desk and they come with the labels, I always have to make sure that they put it somewhere that's really obvious, like on the top of the chair or in the back of the chair, because I've had a similar experience. When I was in Venice, this was a few months ago, my sports chair also went missing and they didn't actually put it on the flight at Heathrow. And I was going there specifically for a sports tournament. It didn't arrive until half an hour before the tournament started. So fortunately it did get there. But I mean, when you're sort of sat there thinking like all this money that's gone into all this planning that's gone into this trip, and I might not be even be able to participate in the thing that I'd prepared for, it's just, extraordinary to think that people don't understand the real implications of that. And also even with the airport staff, when you go and report that something's missing, there's not always a lot of empathy there. And I think the communication side could be a lot better about people recognizing what that means to you, the fact that you don't have that mobility aid there with you. Often, I'll speak to them and say, when's it going to arrive? And I'm not sure, but hopefully it'll be there tonight, or hopefully it'll be there tomorrow. And hopefully, it doesn't really help when you're like just so stressed and anxious about losing something that's so expensive. And sometimes, as Petar said, you can't always get insurance that covers the cost of these items. So there's a lot of hope that we put into, and a lot of trust and faith that we put into these airlines to look after our mobility aids.
One thing I think Zainab mentioned it really in the beginning. It pays to be fit for all of us, if possible, because there's always something coming up and you need to be prepared, and it always takes up extra energy in some way or another. So it really pays to be fit in all these situations. Fit and mental resilience, I gather from all your stories. So that's one last tip I wanted to give.
Thank you so much, Chris. That was really wonderful, that tip. And yeah, I completely agree with that. I would just like to say that's all we've got time for today. I want to say a big thank you to every single one of my guests for coming on and speaking so openly. A massive thanks to Ottobock for providing the space for us to have these very, very important conversations. And of course, a big thank you to everyone watching at home. Until next time, travel safe and see you soon. Ciao.